Welcome to People and Profit, your essential business briefing. Coming up, what went wrong in Argentina? The country's forced to slash spending and raise taxes as the peso tanks. The currency rot spreads across emerging markets. Is the sell-off likely to continue? And we meet the Togolese entrepreneur in Shanghai who's helping Chinese businesses to set up in Africa. First up, though, Argentina is plunging into another economic crisis. The peso has lost half of its value against the dollar this year, and the government's been forced to slash spending and impose new taxes in an effort to balance the books. Argentina's finance minister met Christine Lagarde of the International Monetary Fund in Washington to discuss his government's request to speed up payments from its $50 billion bailout. This in an attempt to secure the country's finances before elections next year.
It's about improving the terms of the agreement we signed in June to reinforce the program. Argentina has already taken steps in recent days with the announcement of fiscal measures. We're talking with the fund about how to continue advancing so that all of the support that the international community gave to us when we closed the agreement in June can materialize into an improvement in Argentina.
Well, for more on this story, we can speak to Andrés Abadie, a Latin American economist for Pantheon Macroeconomics. Andrés, thanks for being with us on France 24. Give us an idea of the background to this. What has gone wrong for Argentina that they've found themselves in this difficult economic position?
Okay, thank you for having me. Well, there are many factors behind this trend, we have seen in Argentina over the last year. Basically, Macri administration has to unwind many populist measures from the previous government. Remember that under the Kirchner administration, we had interest, high inflation, high current account deficit, extremely high fiscal deficits, and basically the external community was out of Argentina. There was no confidence in Argentina at all. So Macri tried to unwind all these populist policies, and he tried to proceed with a gradual approach, but basically we have seen so far that that didn't work. So now markets wanted to see the Argentina economy in a better position, but in a rapid way. Now that all the emerging economies are suffering because of many factors, external factors, such as more protectionist policies and also the Fed in the US increasing interest rates.
So in some ways, has he been unlucky in the situation that transpired with the trade tensions, with the rising interest rates in the United States hitting the peso, or is this, to begin with, really an Argentinian problem?
Yeah, he has been unlucky, but also I have to say that it's the combination of both factors. That, as I said before, Argentina had very high inflation, high fiscal and current account deficit, so he had to deal with all these problems. On top of that, external conditions are not, benign for emerging economy, so he had to deal with those factors at the same time. So investors are basically very picky at this moment and trying to go to invest either in the US or in emerging economies that have, proper or solid macroeconomic fundamentals, and this is not the case of Argentina.
How has he done so far? He was elected as a pro-business president. What until now is going to be his legacy economically until the most recent crisis?
Well, he tried to transform the economy on a gradual pace, but we have seen, for example, the situation in Brazil, that they had to bring the economy into his knees, increase interest rates rapidly, transform the economy, bring an economic recession for 3 years in order to transform the economy, whereas Macri tried to do this gradually. But now I think that he's doing the best that he can in order to bring some stability. He has increased interest rates to 60%. It has increased also, or has committed to a fiscal consolidation, a faster fiscal consolidation, and it has direct communication with the IMF. That's something that was unthinkable under the Kirchner administration. So he has tried to transform the economy. The legacy won't be as good as because of the problem that he has faced so far. But I think that if he succeeds, in putting the economy on a better grip, on a better track, back, the economy will be face of sustainable growth over the coming years. But obviously, that transformation after 10 years of a Kirchner era obviously takes time and some volatility and some suffering.
One of the latest measures he announced was reintroducing a tax on exports. Not very popular with Argentinian farmers, but is it economically a good idea to do what he's doing?
I think that is a very tough measure, but I think that it will help. And the sharp sell-off that we have seen in the currency, that has depreciated a lot, also will give a boost or will offset some of the pain for farmers, because they will have to give some of the benefits to the government. But so it's a tough measure, but I think that is on the. I mean, it shows that the government is committed to put the fiscal accounts in order. And if the economy starts to stabilize late, in the middle of next year or so, and inflation starts to fall, basically because of the economic recession, I think that the economy probably will have a good end of 2019 or 2020. But definitely, he will have many quarters ahead, extremely challenging. Macri basically has been very unlucky, and I think that the economy will continue to suffer in the very near term.
How much weaker can the peso get, do you think, looking at the situation now globally?
Okay, I think, it's very difficult to say that this is the worst level that we are going to see. I think that if confidence is restored, I think that probably this will be the worst level that we have seen in the peso. Remember that the peso was overvalued, and also we have an inflation that is around 30% and likely will increase to 40% by year end. So I think that if the central bank and the government implement all these measures as they have said, and if they are committed to fiscal stability and they are able to restore confidence, I think that the currency will, hover around these levels. But it's too soon to say that the worst is over.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on that situation. Andres Abadia from Pantheon Macroeconomics, thank you very much for speaking to us.
No, thank you for having me. Bye.
Meanwhile, Turkey's central bank has hinted that it could raise rates again to combat the currency crisis there. There were 2 sharp hikes earlier this summer, but since then the bank has held rates steady despite the plunging value of the lira. Figures showing inflation reached almost 18% in August have prompted central bankers to say they will take further action. Now, Turkey's problems may look similar to Argentina's, but are they connected? Anke Ula's been finding out. Anke.
Thanks, Stephen. Since the spring of this year, emerging market currencies have been tanking pretty much across the board. Here you can see 25 emerging market currencies relative to the US dollar. Now, the steep depreciation means higher inflation, decreased purchasing power for locals, and more expensive imports. Now, to understand why this is happening, we have to look at a number of different factors. First, there's the US dollar, which has gained around 5% in value since the start of the year. Higher interest rates, US tax cuts, and increased spending have made investors move their capital from emerging markets to the US market. Global trade tensions have made matters worse for emerging markets. Countries facing US tariffs, including Iran and Turkey, have seen their currencies plummet as a result. Now, if we look at that first graph again, we can see the huge gap between emerging market currencies and the US dollar, and how it's grown since the spring. The US dollar here in orange and emerging market currencies in blue. This is significant because emerging markets tend to have large amounts of public debt in foreign currencies, often US dollars. Now, that leads to a vicious cycle. The more the dollar rises and local currency falls, the harder it is for countries to pay off their foreign debts. As their debt burden grows, investors fear they won't be able to pay in time. They pull their capital, which leads the currency to fall yet again. The contagion might spread even further, especially if the US continues to raise interest rates and boost spending while keeping the fear of a trade war alive. Stephen?
Okay, thank you very much for that. Well, now, as China's economic ties to the United States are facing new challenges, a summit in Beijing has been focusing on links to African countries. We're used to hearing about Chinese businesses setting up in Africa, but fewer going in the other direction. Our correspondents went to meet one Togolese entrepreneur who founded her consultancy firm in Shanghai.
In the economic capital of China, Sylvie Ameyon feels at home. The Togolese woman arrived in China 10 years ago with one idea in mind: to bring Chinese economic players closer to Africans. Why? She's convinced China is the model to follow.
China began with nothing, and it got here. Look how beautiful it is. China started from scratch to get here, and Africa can do it too. That's what gives us hope.
Sylvie Amillon owns a consulting firm in Shanghai. She employs 4 staff members and plans to hire more to meet growing demand. Chinese interest in Africa, especially its raw materials, continues to grow.
Last time we had to deal with a group of Chinese people who wanted to buy gold and diamonds. It's a chance for us to sell our resources to those interested in them. So we have to be very smart. And thanks to globalization, we have to look for win-win partnerships.
Today, more than 10,000 Chinese companies operate in Africa, but African companies are struggling to establish themselves in China. Sylvie Amillon hopes the Sino-African Cooperation Summit will help to change this.
I would like the China-Africa Summit to start by identifying small players like us, who've just started entrepreneurial activities, and consider the role we play. How to help us grow and represent Africa more, especially in the private sector.
She says it's Africa's turn to benefit from strengthening ties to China.
Well, that's it from us for this week. If you'd like to get in touch about any of the stories that we've been covering, you'll find us on Facebook at France 24 Business, or you can tweet me at NewStephen. Until next time, thanks for watching.